Hey everybody, welcome to day one of IGEAS. I am here for the Esports is Waiting panel, and this panel is we're all talking about virtual events. So right now, obviously, we are in COVID world, and we haven't been able to see people in person much besides the occasional dinner or so with social distancing. So obviously for esports, we've actually had this already down where we've had online events. I mean, that's the basis of it. But a lot of times for collegiate events, especially for the school itself, not inter school, but just, the individual school, it's really important to get students engaged through actual in-person events. And this is where we talk about it and talk about how we adjust to online and how you still get your students engaged. So my name is Kelsey Remich. I am the partnerships manager here at Inman Global, and I also work at Evolve Talent Agency as a talent agency. And I'm here with three lovely panelists, and I'm going to go around and let them introduce themselves, starting with Mark Kai.
Hey everyone, my name is Mark Kai. I currently attend Arizona State University. I'm a junior studying marketing and information systems. It helps with the name. And I currently work at PowerSpike doing esports and influencer partnerships. So connecting brands and influencers with deals. And I also run a YouTube channel on the side doing mobile FPS games.
Yeah, as we can see, your play button that's behind you, that's a huge achievement. Good job. So yeah, we're really excited to have you over here today. What about you, Zach?
Yeah, my name is Zach. I currently go to the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. I'm the Vice President of Internal Relations for the UBC Esports Association. So I deal mostly with event planning and working with the university administration for the dealings of esports on campus.
Awesome. Happy to have you here as well. And last but not least, we have Neil Duffy.
Thank you, Kelsey and Zach, fellow Canadian over here. I'm on the other side of the country in Toronto. My name is Neil Duffy. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of the Collegiate Star League. I've been working with CSL since 2015 when we acquired the company, and we've grown it from a small organization to now being on over 1,800 campuses and just approaching about 80,000 participants in our leagues and tournaments. So my main job is to drive revenue, anything from sponsorships, partnerships, advertising, brand deals. I've worked with people like Riot and ESPN and TikTok across the board. So my day to day is a lot of talking, a lot of partnerships, and figuring out how we can get events. So I'm thrilled to be a part of this panel and with these great guests, Mark and Zach and yourself, Kelsey.
Yeah, no, thank you guys all for being here. Like I said before the panel, this is a very well-rounded group of guests, and so I think we hit a lot of aspects that are really important to just event planning in general. So obviously the world's been a little bit weird. It's not something that's not normal for us to definitely do online events, but it's something that we do have to take the challenge with. Unfortunately, I'm not in school anymore. I really miss UC Santa Barbara, my alma mater, but we were super active in our esports community and growing it. And for me, it was all about the LAN events. I would be spending 2-3 days there, setting up all day to at night, and then after we would all go and get some food after. And it was such a community event, And it breaks my heart to think that that's not something that can happen right now. And but you just got to adjust for the times because it will get back to that. But for me, that's something that's super small. It's just, like community, seeing other people. That's something that can't wait for the better health of everybody else. But now going into the actual working world where it's with organizations and companies, what to you guys has been the biggest problem and the biggest challenge with online events? Or only online events, let's say that now.
Yeah. I guess, I'll take this from an esports perspective because I have more experience from running esports tournaments. From an audience standpoint, I think, bringing the hype is just more difficult. Like you mentioned, Kelsey, there's just people aren't there. So oftentimes, players and commentators and the whole crowd erupts off of what's happening there. And so there is that noise, there is that atmosphere. And so the teams not being there, the crowd not being there means the atmosphere isn't there. And then from a production or tournament organizer standpoint, I think getting the teams coordinated and making sure that everything goes off without a hitch is pretty difficult. I mean, we're doing this whole panel, right? This whole conference basically remote, and so it shows good coordination. But oftentimes, players aren't necessarily used to being told here, be on time. They usually have someone to tell. Well, they're not used to doing it themselves. They're used to having someone tell them, right? So having to do this on their own in the comfort of their home, it might pose some problems, but there's also some cool opportunities here. I know that, various esports tournament organizers, they've been doing like room tours or house tours in between segments. So, that's something you traditionally wouldn't be able to see. So there's opportunities, but I think mainly just from an esports standpoint, there's not as much interaction and not as much hype there.
Yeah, no, that's something that especially I'm really passionate about LCS and League of Legends in particular. That's my main game, and just I would be that person that goes every single week. And now it's not the same. It's definitely not the same. And so I totally understand the hype it brings. That's something that drove me to love esports so much. And so maintaining that and trying to bring that in different ways has definitely been a struggle. What about the rest of you guys? Has there been anything that really has stuck out to you?
Well,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead. No, by all means, go ahead.
Awesome. I was just going to say, in specifically thinking about the collegiate esports space, one thing that's we've been able to rely on and use prior is building community has really been helped by the in-person ways that you meet people. You have new students moving to the city, and they're looking for things to do, and so sometimes that leads them to the esports club and things like that. Whereas now, I think the last summer has probably been one of the most unique experiences for us as an organization in terms of trying to find ways where we can still reach the same audiences of people who might not know about us before coming to university, but would be a perfect fit for our community. And so finding creative ways to do that through making great use of our social media and our platforms like that has really been important, I think, for us to capitalize on that.
Yeah, no, I definitely think the social media aspect of just events is so important now. And a lot of times, you know, you're starting to see a lot of dedicated social media managers in the collegiate scene. Like before, that wasn't really a priority, at least like from my experience with other colleges. It was more about the events, it was more about the sponsorships and the partnerships. Social media was kind of put on the back burner. But now that's what's important, and that's what you have to adjust to. And that drives your marketing, and that's the only way I'm marketing besides like hanging up posters. So I completely agree with you. That's something that's so important. What were you going to say, Neil?
I was just going to jump in because a lot of the interesting products around being in the partnership side is it's driven by events. So most of the activations we do, when you quantify a collegiate esports deal, it's very tough to do it in the realm of, how do we compare against the C9 or a TL like Mark has behind him, is their numbers are just so astronomical, right? The money they put into their products, the money they put into their teams, the money they put into their production. When you're going to a company like, let's just go with Alienware, for example, who's a big sponsor of Team Liquid. When you put an apples to apples comparison of my organization, the Collegiate Star League, against Team Liquid, we're going to get dwarfed by the numbers. But what we can do that really no one else can do is last year, for example, I did 64 on campus or near campus events. And that gives you great access, exposure, and engagement to students. And that's something that, a professional org or really, any other business except an experiential marketing company could not do. So it's been a challenge, but it's been an opportunity for us at the CSL side to kind of reinvent what we do. Because when I break it down and I go to a brand, and someone that we did great work with last year was Zaxby's, for example, and we did meetups all around U.S. campuses for Zaxby's, and now we've got to go back to them and reinvent and say, hey, but we can create this fantastic content for you that's going to be original programming. We can do this social media campaign. We can give you this kind of placement throughout stream. Not only that, but then you've got our Discord, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and we've got our newsletter. So all of a sudden, shifting it to completely digital gives us the opportunity to still engage the student in the where they are, which is online and through the different game platforms or streams. But it just alleviates the pressure of having to host all these live events. And with that, truthfully, the costs go down because for a live event, I've got to have a TO, I've got to have a broadcast team, I've got to have shipping, I've got to have swag. So now doing it all virtually gives us a lot more flexibility when it comes to margin and budget, and lets us put more money back into prizing and scholarships back to the students.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That actually here at Invin as well, since we have shifted all our conferences online, we have noticed, there's more funds that we can expend in other places. Yeah, by having giveaways, by giving other things to our vendors and to our sponsors and to our attendees as well. And so using these things, do you think that because we have these funds allotted that are open for us to give back, that you see a higher increase in attendance? Or do you think because of the lack of community and all of that, that there is still there's less than maybe what there would have been in person?
So I would say it's less than, and the reason being is when you've got an individual, you got a student on campus, and there's a Smash Brothers tournament, and they're a Smash Brothers fan, they're going to show up. When we've got a really great stream going on, or we've got something that's happening at home online, we don't always capture the same audience because there's so many distractions, or there's so many other opportunities, or there's so much other pieces of content to engage them with. So maybe they come to check it out, they enjoy it, but then they're going to dip off and see what Valkyrie is doing, or Shroud, or one of the pro teams. And it's tougher to keep an audience for a long period of time. Whereas if I know somebody's going to walk through the doors at a venue that I've got, and we're hosting a tournament, they're likely going to be there for between 60 and 90 minutes, and we can engage them at multiple different touch points. So that would be swag, giveaways, promos, raffles, our sponsors that would be on site. Probably when they sit down at the and watch the match, we can give them branded thunder sticks. Lanyard's going to be branded. There's so many different ways to engage them in a live event, but we're just going with the flow, and we're figuring out ways to speak to the students and engage the students online. And it's still going to be a learning curve, but we're getting a lot better.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And yeah, even you think about the simplest things, you can always have maybe like a stream open in the background, but you're not actually paying attention to it.
Right.
And you have to take that will to go and like to go to this tournament, especially for stuff like Smash tournaments. That's a great analogy because everyone's gonna go to that tournament. Like it has like even the smallest schools have just like the most random large like Smash communities because like the game's that good. And so, yeah, having that aspect where it's not in person is just, yeah, so detrimental in so many ways. As of now, maybe in the future we'll be able to discover something that does bring almost like a VR Smash tournament in some way. But yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Does anyone else have any thoughts on this?
I'd like to just first of all agree with Neil on his point about it's a lot harder with things being online for tournaments. One interesting point though is as a club, UBC Esports had a 2-month event series called the Sunset Series, which we ran entirely composed of online events. And among some of the game tournaments that we held, we also had a lot of new things for casual communities. So with the release of Animal Crossing, we actually started doing just community nights for people to want to come out and engage and have fun with their friends. And we found that compared to when we were trying to host things in person that weren't necessarily like a competition, people were a lot more excited about the opportunity to engage with other people, perhaps in ways that they hadn't done before. But then also at the same time, there's sort of like you have to make a difference between the people who are coming out to competitions for stuff like Smash or League of Legends and then the casual part of your community and your audience who enjoys things more as a social event. But I think that there's certainly advantages, at least that we've seen, to having some things online, especially for games which you wouldn't necessarily think of as traditional esports.
Yeah, no, of course. Mark, did you have something to add to this?
Yeah, I think even from like, a player perspective too, I know a lot of players talk about burnout and, I think they oftentimes get burned out because they travel so much, but I think they're facing an opposite problem, which is because they don't have to travel at all, they're getting so many events stacked on top of each other. So if you're a player, right, even if you're not just a viewer, as a viewer, you can leave really quickly, right? You have that low barrier to entry, but also low barrier to exit. So like you said, you can, pop a stream on and have 5-6 streams on. The players, they're playing for so long that it kind of makes it less, I would say a lower tier of competition, even at the highest tier, because they're just so tired after playing so many hours of games a day. They have to scrim as well. They have to, review VODs. So, overall quality of esports also might be affected. Just seeing how frequent these events are due to the lower amount of travel that they need to do.
Yeah, and to back off what you just said, I think that is a great point to make, especially because most of these people are spending their entire lives right now inside the room or inside a house. And it brings back to the same conversation about like gaming houses, where you don't really get that separation of work and relaxation. Like it's all there. And so, how is it? For some people, obviously, it's comfort for them. So they might be fine playing at home. But for some people, like me, for example, if I'm going somewhere to compete or do something like that, there's an added level of pressure that helps me perform better. And so that's not even there as well. So that can just add to just the lower quality of the game as well. So that's a great point. I'm really happy you brought that up because I think it is important even to think about beyond just the event planning and just into player performance in general. Um, and so, speaking about that, and speaking about just the shift that we have made, we've seen a lot more prominence of online event hosting through platforms like Swapcard, which we're using today. We also previously used Brella for one of our conferences, and these have been around for a while. But have you guys been used to using these kind of platforms for events, or how have you kind of structured that so far? Especially Zach, because you work directly with event planning.
Yeah, I guess I can go first on that. I think personally, it's my first time using something like Swapcard as a platform. It's been great in terms of the ease and usability. I think that especially for moving forward, it'll really benefit esports as a whole to get more use out of platforms like this. And I think that um, what we've really been using as of right now to facilitate a lot of our online events has mostly just been traditional Discord, as well as things like Battlefy and Challenge for the tournament organization itself.
Mhm.
um, and one thing that we were really aiming to do with this is keeping the familiarity there with people who had been coming to our in-person events of the same thing, because we were hesitant to really try to change the formula too much with things becoming online, to make things feel like, oh, we have to jump through all these hoops to play now. I could just come to this room at this time and we could play Smash. Um, but I think there's been a lot of different ways that we've been able to reach our audience still, and especially on tournaments and having people have team formation and all that. It's much the same that things were still when before COVID times.
Yeah, no, I definitely can vouch for saying that I use Discord so much now. And before I used it like very like for like business calls and whatnot, but now it's just become regular hangout to see my friends, especially with the addition of video chatting. Like that has just like brightened my day on so many levels. We always do webcam Wednesday with me and my friend group, and like it's something that like they adapted, like Discord adapted to the times and was like, we need this. Like no one's using Skype anymore. No one's gonna use Skype. So, we have to like start making this into a platform where we can do more than just voice chat. And so that's really awesome that you guys do use that and do utilize it as well. Neil, what about you with these online events? Do you usually use just Discord as well, or what's kind of the run through?
Yeah, very much so. We're very heavily involved in Discord. That's the primary mode of communication with the students. I know that I've ramped up my use of it. And from the business perspective, for we use Microsoft Teams. I'd never used it
Yeah.
before, and now it's just taken over my life. It's my
Yeah.
schedule is from the moment we get up to the moment we go to bed. It's crazy to think of how much we do video calls now. Before we used to have phone calls, and now everything's a video chat. So I think from the organizing and event perspective, our season kind of was ramping down when the pandemic hit, and now we're ramping up into league play. We were able to do the grand finals online and the TikTok Cup online, but we've kind of been in a bit of a lull. So we're going to go and see how it's impacted, and we're going to take a lot of feedback from the students, and as our season opens up in the first week of October, and try to evolve to whatever techniques and whatever practices they're using, and integrate that into how we operate the season, because it's going to be a bit of a learning curve for all of the league and tournament operators. Just it's going to be a shift from what we've done previously, and we've got 12 years of history, but this is going to be the first year we go about it in this path.
Yeah. So Neil, talking about that and talking about how you have been watching all these things, do you think there's a outstanding marketing strategy besides social media that's working so far with these events, or anything that is worth kind of investing in?
We'll see. You know what I think it is if you find a way to engage with the students or engage with anybody, and whether it's social justice or whether it's giveaways or whether it's big prize pools or smaller prize pools or whatever it may be, is the most interesting and powerful marketing techniques that I've seen over the past 6 months is whatever resonates with people. And if you would have said to me a year ago, what is the best marketing technique, I would have said influencer marketing is taking over the world. And I know you work at Evolved, and that's probably a core pillar of your business. But we're starting to see a level of saturation amongst key influencers and even now the micro influencers. The key influencers, big price point, and their message is being heard, received, but then there's not that CTA or level of engagement after the fact. Now it's going to be the micro influencers. If I'm in Arizona, I'd probably want to talk to a guy like Mark, because him and his, well, he's probably more popular than the average person, but the average person might have 700 or 1,000 friends. And if you're a micro influencer and you're pushing out, hey guys, play in my Super Smash Brothers tournament this weekend, there's a 64 person bracket, first come first serve, I would rely heavily on a micro influencer to fill that up. Whereas now I think that's actually more powerful than any paid media, any organic social media, any earned media. So we're going pretty heavily in on using people that are already in the community and just leveraging their voice.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Like you said, with Evolve, that is something that we do look at, for events and stuff like that to bring more revenue, more attendees and all that stuff. You want to see a familiar face when you go to an event. And especially if it's something like a collegiate event, for example. I remember we brought C9 Mango up to UC Santa Barbara one year, and there was like an hour line to meet him. It was so funny, but everyone enjoyed it. It's just something that it's like one person can make such a huge difference, especially if they do relate to the community. You're not going to just bring some random esports player. You're going to bring someone that actually has something to do with, whatever you're running. And that, like, it holds a lot of gravity, like a lot of gravity. And you could see.
And Mango is just a character. Like, what a person he is.
Yeah. So, no, exactly. It just adds up to it. What about the rest of you too?
Let me ask you, was he wearing sleeves?
Oh my God. Honestly, he was wearing a C9 jersey. I don't remember exactly if he was wearing sleeves, but it was like my freshman year. So that was back a million years ago. So, gotcha. So there's that. But yeah, no, it was really cool. He set up at a boba shop, and they got a lot of business that day. That's for sure. So, yeah, no, but it was just, it was a really fun experience. That's for sure. But yeah, no, any additional comments from Mark and Zach?
I think, Neil kind of hit on the head with, like targeting key people in various segments. I've actually seen it's, sort of like influencer marketing, but more so content marketing. I think one, tournament organizer that's doing this really well is Blast. In the CSGO scene. I mean, they're so successful in CSGO that they moved on to Valorant and Dota. So that, that kind of shows how successful they are. But I'm a big CSGO viewer, and they had their Blast Pro series in London, I think in January. So it was a physical event. And I think they were a bit lucky with the timing, but one thing they were actually able to do is create so much content when the players were there that even still now I'm seeing brand new content from them. It's like this tournament happened in January, and yet I still see content that's like, oh, these players were here in January. They're like discussing, like what's your favorite map, things like that, insights that you kind of don't really see. And it's on the brand channels, right? Which has really developed an affinity for Blast. They're like, oh, it's my favorite players, but Blast is the one putting this together. Without Blast, these players wouldn't be talking about this. So I think that really develops kind of an affinity for that tournament specifically. And I've seen their content, their comments are literally saying, how do they still have content? This is amazing that I'm still seeing new stuff. It's not just, interviews from past tournaments. It's interviews that have never been seen before. So it's brand new content that really keeps that tournament platform or tournament organizer in relevance, even if they're not having an event. I think that's really key. And especially for collegiate stuff, right? If you're not able to have it, how can you maybe stay relevant and maybe have that content that keeps you forward and in mind once, things go back to a little bit more normal.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, especially in the collegiate scene, because you don't usually have a budget for a large content team. So, you get what you get at tournaments, and like that's what you have. But a lot of people haven't realized that you have to adjust your content production and your content output. and are just dumping it all at once like they usually do. And then it's like, well, what are you going to do for the rest of the months before the next tournament? And then also, if you do plan this out and kind of slowly roll it out, it creates more hype, more people want to come to the next event. And like you said, it's the way that people adjust to things, and that's something that I really need to look into. Blast, you said, and see kind of what they're doing, because that sounds like they actually have a strategy going on that actually works, and so that's great. Yeah. Yeah, but we do have a question actually from the audience, from Connor. He asked, any tips for creating an authentic virtual event experience? What are some of the features that allow attendees / viewers to interact? Anybody want to tackle this?
I'll take it. I think the way that we look at it is, how can we replicate the event online and at least make it engaging? And whether that's additional contesting through the chat to make sure that they stay and are engaged and are communicating, because there's nothing worse than when you watch TV, it's a one-way process, right? You're sitting and watching TV. When you're watching Twitch, it's a two-way engagement. You're engaging with the chat, you're watching what people are saying, you're dropping emotes in there, you're whatever it may be, is you've got to make it something that they are engaged with, that they have to pay attention, and that they feel like they're participatory, because everybody wants to find like-minded people. So if you're watching, a Mango against Hungrybox match online, and this is just an example, you already know your camp is going to be divided into two different people, Team Hungrybox and Team Mango. So you want to play up on that. And if you've got great brands or partners, is how do you get them involved? If it's Hungrybox, for example, maybe you try and say, 10 people will win Jersey Mike meals, and if it's C9, people will win cases of Red Bull. So I think what we're looking at a lot is, how do we make it unique, different, and better than anything we've ever done? Because it's hard. Even this right now, communicating on a panel through my screen, sitting in my house, is a lot more challenging than if I was sitting next to Mark and next to Zach and Kelsey. You were moderating, and we could speak face to face. So creating an authentic experience and creating something that's going to be immersive, it involves the organizer finding a way to engage. Because even the people that are in the chat, I love that you can have the ongoing questions that come up, and I love that Connor, a CGA for CSL, is chirping me already with the Collegiate Star League College reference. But now I can see it, so I feel a little bit of a reference, and I'll track him down afterwards. But finding that engagement, finding a tool, and it doesn't need to be something high tech. It's, what can we do to engage the audience, whether it's 4 people, 40 people, or 400 people.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. Definitely, it shows the range that you do have to adjust to, but also just the innovation that you make, because you got to get creative on how to connect these people and how to really get them involved. And it's not just, yeah, we're gonna have a giveaway at the end of the day anymore. Even when you do giveaways online, the outcome is just not the same. But I agree with you, Neil. Those were some great points made. Zach and Mark, do you have anything else to say on this topic that can help out Connor?
Yeah, I think specifically for collegiate stuff, this is something that we really thought hard about over the summer. And what we found, to some success, was increasing the amount that we actually stream as a club on our Twitch channel. Because when you're broadcasting the live games and you have shoutcasters, hyping up the matches and all this, it makes the competitors really invested and wanting to come out and play. And also makes, the audience want to tune in and be like, wow, it's not just like watching, a spectator client of somebody playing a game that I don't know anything about. So streaming, number one, has been a huge commitment by our club to increase the amount that, there's a reason to come out to our events, because you're going to get shown on stream. And in addition to that, over the 2 months that we had the Sunset Series, anybody who came out, we had a point system. So if people were free on a Friday night and they wanted to come to our casual low key lobby event, we called it, where they just come and play games, people would earn points. And over the course of the summer, we had small raffle giveaways, as well as a large at the end of the entire event for the most points. And that really sort of incentivized people to who might have only come out for 1 or 2 tournaments to give things a try. And through there, you know, it was a lot of effort by our executive team, the people who I work with, to really be there on the day of the events to make sure that people were having fun and interacting with each other. And you know, from there, we did our best to really have that organic level of connection and friendship between new people.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point with making those connections, especially within the collegiate scene, like new people. That's where you get a lot of these, you know, you have to just piggyback off the new students, the new people you're grabbing in, and make sure because that's what they come for clubs. They come for connection. So I completely agree with you. But we're actually going to have to wrap up this panel. Right before we do go, I do want to thank you guys so much for being here. Online events is the future, and I think even after COVID is over, it's going to be something that sticks around for a very, very long time, obviously. And so, yeah, thank you guys for your input. Do you guys want to plug anything right before we leave? I'll start with Mark.
Just drink your water and stay hydrated. I've been watching Esports Talk a lot. Jake Loki, if you guys know him, he his thing is always stay hydrated. So, you know, stay hydrated and keep up to date with esports news.
Yeah, and subscribe on YouTube.
There you go.
What about you, Zach?
I'll echo that first. Stay hydrated, everybody out there. I think that I'd like to shout out our club personally. If you know anybody's from the Pacific Northwest area, we run a lot of events at UBC Esports, and also stay safe out there.
Awesome. And Neil, you want to finish us off?
Yeah, absolutely. I want everyone who's watching this to go and register for the Collegiate Star League. StarLeague.com. Go check it out. New seasons are open. League of Legends, Dota, Counter-Strike. We've got Fortnite, Rocket League, all these different games. If you're a student on campus who's interested in social, casual, or competitive play, we want to be the home for you. So come hang out. It's free to register, play, find your teammates, and let's have a really great year. And there's like $60,000, $70,000 in scholarships up for grabs so far.
Get that money, that's for sure. Okay, thank you guys so much. Next up, we do have another panel, so just stick around and we'll be right back.